Why is it so important for you to get involved in the relief effort?
Firstly, I'm Jamaican. I live here. And, it was a big scare for me because Kingston was supposed to get it as well. But all my career, just has been Jamaican supporting me. And for me to be here in Jamaica, be Jamaican and not and be in a position to help and not help, that wouldn't be good on my side. So, I'm very grateful. I'm very proud to be Jamaican, and I will do everything I can to help build back Jamaica.
And Noah?
Yeah, I mean, I would say that I didn't have a connection probably 3 to 4 years ago, but of course, with Janelle being from Jamaica, being, I've been there for so many years, and of course, we have a rivalry. And, I think it was a little shocking when people saw that Noah was giving money and partnering with Asafa to, give support. But at the end of the day, we're all humans, and this is a horrible event, natural disaster. I've been through my share of hurricanes, but a Category 5 is unprecedented. And when, if you, again, like Asaba said, if you have the ability, if you have the financials, if you have the time, why not give it? I've been blessed to be in such an amazing position thanks to the sport that, I've done well in. I want to be able to help people just like people help me.
Tell us about your charity and the type of relief that is providing to the people of Jamaica.
Yeah, we didn't know how to help at first. And we thank Asafa so much because our biggest issue was going to be having boots on the ground. Um, we know that there are, tons of people who are helping out right now, and there are other foundations that you can go to. But we really wanted to make sure that, not just Janelle's community, but a lot of the other communities surrounding that area got support. As Janelle says, St. Elizabeth is the breadbasket, parish. It provides food to the rest of the island. And if you don't have food, then it doesn't matter if you make it to the next day. You need something to eat. You need something to drink. You need to be able to keep the energy and the spirits up. So making sure that all these people in the smaller communities are getting the aid as fast as the bigger communities, I think, is probably the most important thing.
Hurricane Melissa was a Category 5, one of the deadliest in Jamaica and Jamaica's history. Um, just talk about what you found, what you saw, the people you spoke to, and how it impacted Jamaicans, especially in the west of the island.
Well, like I said, crazy enough, it was supposed to, in Kingston, and Kingston was saved for some reason, and maybe if Kingston wasn't saved, we wouldn't be able to get aid here in Jamaica. Yesterday, I drove. I wanted to see just to get a visual of everything, that's going on. What happened on the island. I drove Montego Bay, Westmoreland, St. Elizabeth, and to be honest, I was scared. I was so shocked. I was scared to look left or right because there was just people on both sides of the road, hoping that this is help coming. This is someone else coming to give them something. What I mean, people with kids, young babies, and it was devastating for me. I see houses underwater, three-story houses, like you see places where houses used to be, and it's really bad. It's really bad, and for Noah to really join on board, and a lot of other Jamaican, celebrities are actually helping. I see a lot of people, American celebrities, coming down to help Jamaica as well because everyone loves Jamaica. People vacation here. Jamaica is just like home for everybody, and to see Jamaica going through this, I think the world is mourning, for Jamaica right now, and I'm mourning for Jamaica, and my heart is just crying every day when I seeing the videos. It doesn't do it justice. You have to see it in person. When you see it in person, like there's no greenery, like everything is just brown. It's like a world war. What I mean? When somebody drop a bomb, that's what it looks like. And people are struggling, and the more help they can get, and I think people are at a point now where, yes, please give us food, but where do we eat the food? We don't have a shelter, we don't have a table, we don't have chairs to sit on to eat the food, So I think people want to build back, so that's where, Noah and myself, we're going to try and see how best we can, support people with building back, giving them a shelter, giving them a table to eat this food that they're getting.
What has she told you about, the devastation that the hurricane has caused?
Yeah, I mean, I think being with her in those 2 days where Jamaica was getting hit was probably the most stressed I've ever seen her. And we've been through a lot of hard times, but really watching her just like constantly being on the phone and just I remember of course you're gonna be a little irritable as well, but like really just so stressed and worried for her family. She was constantly reaching out to anybody and everybody, checking up on them, trying to get them to get a plan together just in case things happen, and constantly calling throughout. And there was that time period when cell phone service did go out, and again it just got completely dark. You don't know what's happening. You don't know if they're okay, if the house came down, if the roof caved in, if there's flooding in the water, if your
Mhm.
safe haven is no longer safe. Did the windows bust in and now it's cold? You had heat but now you don't. You just don't know. You don't know if somebody's helping, if they're not helping. Are they able to get to a friend's house or are they not? It's just so scary. The sight and the thought of unknown in those moments is very stressful. And again, that's why we are trying to do so much right now. And even the rebuilding, my mom and Janelle and me were on a call with Asafa and his team, and we were going through like just things we need to get them. Of course, food, water, but socks. My mom was like, okay, let's think about like canned foods, like yeah, and can openers. And Janelle and Asafa are like, no, they don't need that. They'll find a way to open that.
Yeah.
And we were like, wow, that's not how we would have done it, but we're so privileged to the point like they're gonna survive and they're gonna come together and they're gonna fight together. But still, we want them to have the best resources, the best starter kit to be able to not have to be in that situation.
I guess that's one of the things, isn't it? We take for granted the things that we have at our disposal that makes our life so much easier.
Hmm.
Think about perishable, non-perishable goods that is really important to get into these places where it's been deeply affected. But
Hmm.
not thinking about the can opener is just one of those
Yeah.
things that, as I said, as everyday people just take for
Yeah.
granted. Always, I guess it's good to always also have, you know, I suppose mummy's instincts telling you, well, why have you forgotten about this and have you forgotten about
Yeah.
that? That's, great stuff that you guys are doing to provide for the people of Jamaica. Um, Safa, yourself and Noah have been working, providing vital aid for these communities. And you've mentioned as well that other Jamaican celebrities have gotten on board. I've seen the likes of Usain Bolt and Shelly Ann as well providing relief.
Mhm.
As a high profile athlete, how critical is it that you use your voice with the stature that you have to galvanize people, to get people involved in the relief effort?
I mean, it's very important because, us as, celebrities, we have a bigger voice than everyone else, and we have to voice that voice, we have to speak up, for people who doesn't have a voice. And, when we speak, mountain move and all that stuff. So, I'm definitely in a position where I can use my voice, I can use my image, what I mean, and, get things done. So it's very important for me to speak up. It's very important for all the celebrities to speak up, and use their platform to raise awareness to what's going on in Jamaica and how to help, and who to help as well.
And it's predominantly, I've spoken anecdotally to friends and family that I know. It's predominantly obviously people that have maybe new build houses with a bit more modernality to them
Mm,
in Jamaica that may have been unscathed, may have had slight destruction, but nothing, too major. But, as you and I know, it's, the people that are not as privileged as those people to have nice houses that have been the ones that are
mm.
affected. Do you feel like, is the aim for yourselves, and do you feel like relief from outside is getting to those people quick enough?
Well, um, I think, I think people are doing, the best they can, and I think, where the government is trying to put, the country back in a position where people can get back to work, and start making a living where they can even help themselves, to build back, but I think it could move faster, but, for myself, I'm trying my best, and Noah and the rest of, celebs in Jamaica, we're doing our best, we're using our own resources. We're not watching or waiting for the government. The government will do their thing. We just want to contribute, as much as possible, because at the end of the day, without, Jamaicans supporting us, or we're nobody, so we definitely have to make sure that we do everything we can, and yes, relief. I think a lot of communities haven't gotten any relief as yet, because Jamaica is very small, but it's big in a sense. Like Jamaicans say we're little, but we talawa. So there are a lot more communities to be touched, and we're gonna get there. But it's taking a while, but we're getting a lot of support, and I really appreciate that.
Noah, how did this partnership between you and Asafa come about?
Oh wow! I mean, me and Safa and the wives and fiancés, we've kind of been growing it over time. What was it, 22 or was it 23 when we first did our podcast, and even before that, we've have seen each other, but we started just getting closer. Started checking up on each other. Sent some things to his family. Sent a few videos. By the way, congrats on your son on Sports Day.
Yes,
uh,
thanks.
um, and we've just been kind of growing closer and closer. And as we were checking up on each other, we both were just in a situation where we wanted to do something. And I know that I had at the time financial resources to give, but I didn't know who to give to. And Asafa was already given financial and moving and getting aid to them directly. So I'm like, hey, if we're able to give these finances, will you be able to supply it to the specific areas that we have in our mind and on our hearts? And he was like, of course, of course. And just going from there, it's like, okay, how do we keep pushing? Safa talked earlier about providing shelter, getting people to a secure place to where they can actually start going to have jobs, and that we can get the economy moving. That's obviously the next step. And of course, getting them the resources to feel like, okay, I feel a little safer now.
We've seen, or I've seen in particular, that a lot of the islands nearby, the Caribbean islands, have pledged support, donated supplies, communications, and things like that to Jamaica, Haiti, and the wider Caribbean that have been affected from Hurricane Melissa. The UK government have put in £7.2 million. Do you feel like that's enough?
I'll just say what we ask when we ask people to donate. No, nothing is too little, nothing is too much. Whether that is time, effort, spreading the word, because you're only one person to get to the person you need. So I tell people, even if you don't have the finances, share the post, let others know, because it could fall on the eyes of somebody who's like, oh wow, I didn't even know this was going on, I want to help this situation. And even going to it's not my job to tell anybody how much money they should or should not give, that, because who know, I don't know what their situation is, but again, if they're giving, then I'm going to consider that they're doing that at the bottom of their heart, because they didn't have to give anything.
I agree with that. I think a lot of people are looking at it from an angle of Jamaica being a part of the Commonwealth and, still being under the British, in a sense. I think people are looking at it from that angle. But, like Noah said, the thought counts a lot as well. You know, who knows? Maybe it could be more. Maybe there's more coming. But any help at this moment, is help.
The Jamaican government I've seen today, and I think the figures are slightly disputed because there's still some people that have been unaccounted for. That around 28 people have confirmed to have lost their life to this hurricane. What is your message to the families of Jamaica, those that have been affected for loss of life, and those that are struggling to rebuild?
My advice, is just time. It will take time to build back from this. If I was in a position where I could just adopt all the families that were affected, I would have. But I'm not in that position right now. So it's just for them to be strong, and be patient, because better will come. We will build back, and just stay strong and do as much as you can to stay alive.
Noah, plans to see what the work the foundation is doing and visit Jamaica sometime soon?
We definitely are trying to get out there sooner rather than later. Hopefully, at the very latest, January. At the very earliest, maybe the end of November. We're praying because me and Janelle have talked about a lot of trying to get out there as quickly as possible. Checking up on our family, and then of course, making sure that what we are doing is working, and then giving aid to Asafa so that he doesn't have to carry it all on his back. Of course, he is strong enough, but just because you're strong don't mean you have to.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. And I've been getting a ton of messages on social media, people who want to help, want to donate. They want somebody who they can trust, and they see me as a face they can trust. But I know I say I cannot take on all the load on myself. So I'm just working with people that I'm familiar with. I welcome all the help, all the support, but some of it, it gets a bit too much at some point, because I still have a family to run. I still have, life still goes on. My kids are back in school, and a lot of things. So I'm trying my best, trying to pace myself as well, and yeah, but we'll get there.
Well, I'll pick up on that point. I mean, I guess it's like quite physically and emotionally, mentally draining. I guess, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It is. It is. It is very, very, because to be around that every day, to see people, your people, struggling like that. Never in a million years, we thought Jamaica would have ever been like this. And like I said, driving through it, it looked like somebody dropped a bomb on that side of Jamaica. It seemed like the water seemed like it burnt the island. What I mean? It seemed like it was fire. So to be around that every day, and like the drive, and if I didn't have like, police escort like daily, like the traffic, the pile up of people going to St. Elizabeth to help and trying to get back to Kingston, the traffic pile up is crazy. It's crazy, because when you really think about it, Kingston is really filled with people from Westmoreland, St. Elizabeth, and like Montego Bay. Those guys, came to Kingston to work, and to support their families. So you find that there's so much traffic, there's so much going on in this time. Everyone is trying to help. And it's really nice to see whenever I go on the street, like the first thing someone says to me is that they're on their way to Westmoreland or to St. Elizabeth. So everyone is trying to help, with whatever little they can help with.